I'm Kristen Oaks White. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week. My partner Avery Davidson will join us a little later on in the show. Well, inflation is a big topic in the news right now, and it's certainly worked its way into rural areas. This week, TWILA's Neil Melanson looks at how it's hitting us at the grocery store and why it might be around for quite a while.
Prices at the grocery store are a major concern this year. The latest consumer price index shows feeding ourselves is up 10% over last year in the U.S. It's not just an American phenomenon either. For instance, in Turkey, prices across the board are up 70% from 2021 for food and fuel. Of course, the war in Ukraine is partly responsible, but there's a number of things driving these prices, according to LSU Ag Center economist Dr. Michael Delaberto.
We've also seen vegetable oil indexes up 25% year over year. The cereal index, the corn index up 17 and 25% year over year, mainly on supply issues, but also transportation, logistics, and then the ultimate uncertainty in agriculture, weather. Drought concerns not only in the U.S. for the wheat crop, South American corn and soybean crop, drought in France for their wheat crop. So all of these things collectively are acting to drive the price of food higher.
Prices for fuel and fertilizer have driven farmers to make changes in what they farm. In Louisiana, that means more beans and fewer acres of corn. The decision is pure economics, according to Grayson Close, a grain marketing specialist with the Louisiana Farm Bureau Marketing Association.
I think, honestly, margins are going to be down. Even with higher prices on commodities that we're getting right now, it's more than offset by fuel and fertilizer and seed. A lot of people are planting stuff and they don't know what their seed's costing them. So I think margins are going to be down overall, even though we're in a high price scenario.
Another potential issue is upcoming work on the Old River Lock system, scheduled to begin in August. This is right when Louisiana farmers would need access to ship their grains, but would be closed to barge traffic. Farmers expecting a premium on their grains for being so close to the Gulf might actually start seeing a negative. Andy Brown says the Louisiana Farm Bureau is actively working on the situation to hopefully delay it until after harvest is over.
We're trying to ask the Corps with a many organizational partners to just simply delay the start of that project until after the critical harvest season. So begin November 1, and we'll certainly understand and partner with them to move forward in that direction.
The most recent consumer price index released in May shows a 1% increase in food prices, even for eating at home, over April. Over the last year, we've seen an 8.3% increase for all items. And of course, Kristen, one thing that's making big waves in the news is the lack of baby formula. And this is just one of those other supply chain issues mixed with, there was a plant in Michigan that shut down. And so it's one of those things that just helps and aids driving up the prices. And until we see a reduction of some of that, or an increase in demand, or supply, I should say, and a reduction in demand, we're just going to be with inflation for the foreseeable future.
It seems like it's everything. There's a price increase on everything. Cars, the market for the chips that they put in cars.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed driving in, all of those, that motor mile that we are on Airline Highway in Baton Rouge, they're empty.
Yeah.
And it's all because they're bought. I've never seen it like that.
And the used car market is through the roof.
It is.
The housing market, it's not a good time to buy anything.
No, and if you're buying a car, it's better if you order it new, because you'll be getting it as long as you can wait that time. But if you can't wait, man, you're just paying through the nose.
It sounds like we're all going to have to tighten our bootstraps for a while, or whatever the phrase is that they say. So thanks for bringing the story to us, Neil Melanson. Well, fuel is a major factor when it comes to flooding fields, harvesting, and delivering crawfish across the state. Yet another reason to get out and support the farmers, still bringing them in to our tables to enjoy with friends and family. So let's take a look at some prices from across the state. In Lake Charles, you can visit contraband crawfish for live crawfish for $3 a pound, and boiled crawfish is $4.25 cents a pound. In Shreveport, Chuckwagon Crawfish has crawfish for $2.79 per pound for live sacks and $3.99 per pound for boiled. In Vidalia, C&M Crawfish has live crawfish for $3.75 a pound and boiled crawfish is $6.25 per pound. As we move later into the season, be sure to always call ahead before you go pick up crawfish to make sure that they have some, and also to check these prices as they can change a little bit here and there. These crawfish prices are brought to you by the Louisiana Crawfish Promotion and Research Board, which reminds you to always eat Louisiana crawfish and to make sure you ask before you eat. Well, according to the USDA Economic Research Service, the number of family farms are on the decline, losing 180,000 farms since 2007. Many farms are now turning to agritourism to help keep the family farm alive. This week, Twila's Brianne Hendrickson travels to North Louisiana to see how one farm has done just that.
Welcome to Papa Simpson's farm.
That welcome is the first thing you'll hear when you arrive for a farm tour. Just like any tour, they want you to have the full experience at Papa Simpson's farm, including a tractor ride. And don't forget to save a spot for the most important farmhand, Daisy the dog. Once you make it down the road, the real tour begins, from the hay ride to the hay maze, and everyone's favorite part, the animals. Summer Bourne, co-owner and Papa Simpson's daughter, understands how important tours like this are.
When you have these school groups that come out, so many of these kids have never seen rolling hills, they've never seen open pastures, they've never seen an animal before, besides a dog or a cat maybe. And some of them haven't even seen that. I mean, you saw the dog get on the hay wagon a while ago. Sometimes that's the first time these kids have seen any of it. And I do it because I want these kids to realize that it does take that farmer and it does take that family farm to make everything in this world really happen.
With the passion to educate about the agriculture industry, they make sure to squeeze in as many hands-on activities as possible, from milking the cow to planting corn and even holding offspring, from chicks to goats. Helping these children understand the process of field to fork is very important to daughter Holly Calhoun.
See where all their food and stuff actually comes from, and it doesn't actually come from the grocery store. It starts with a farmer first.
As the tours continue, the children were able to feed all different farm animals and learn more about where their food comes from, as well as some byproducts. They even stopped to see the newest addition to the farm, a new donkey offspring, Pam Simpson, wife and co-owner of Papa Simpson's farm. She works daily to make sure people know how important agriculture is, especially a family farm like theirs.
This land means so much to my husband, I cannot tell you. And I plan on trying to keep it in the family as long as I'm alive. So it's been in the family for 6 generations. They better hold on to it one way or another.
If you are a teacher who wants to bring their class out or just want to enjoy a day at the farm, tours are open. If you are hoping to avoid the summer heat, don't worry. Later in the year, they will have a pumpkin patch to visit. As always, we have the information up on our website, twilatv.org. And Kristen, I have to say, it was great getting out there and seeing all the animals again and seeing those kids interact with them. It was amazing.
Places like that are so wonderful, and that's in Arcadia, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I wonder how long they've been in existence, because I grew up right close to Arcadia.
So it's a 6th-generation farm.
So they've been doing it for a while.
Yes, and they're all agritourism. They've finally are done with the dairy farm, and they still have the dairy cow. The kids that day actually made butter and got to eat it.
That's awesome.
So it was good to get those kids out there and, as always, learn about agriculture.
That's true, and that maybe next time we'll have to go back up there with you when you head back up there.
Yes, for the pumpkins.
Bree, thank you. Excellent story. Well, summer has not technically started, but if you've been outside, you know that it feels like it's already arrived. Staying properly hydrated can really help avoid medical problems associated with the heat. Twila's Craig Gautreaux shares with us a few tips to stay safe out in the summer heat.
The calendar says May, but temperatures for many in the U.S. feel like late June and the throes of summer. Working in the sun or simply exercising in this heat can wear down anyone. That's why it's important to recognize the symptoms of heat exhaustion and heat stroke.
If you are getting overheated, if you're getting towards heat exhaustion, you may feel a bit dizzy, you may have excessive sweating, excessive fatigue. You want to slow down, get to a cooler area, at least shade, preferably inside with some AC.
Heat stroke is a much more dangerous condition, and according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, leads to nearly 700 deaths a year.
Confusion is a sign of heat stroke. So you've got dizziness, and then the confusion element, you need to seek emergency medical attention now.
Drinking fluids during the day is important to staying properly hydrated, but Stroop says you need to drink fluids from the very beginning.
In Louisiana, when you wake up in the morning, you're actually starting at a deficit with your hydration, so you want to drink water first thing, have your coffee, sure, but drink some water before you go out in the heat.
Stroop also says there are foods commonly grown in Louisiana that can help you survive the summer heat.
Eat some Louisiana fruits that are in season. Pick up some watermelon. You're going to get, some great natural sugars as well as being hydrated. Eat some blueberries.
Sports drinks can provide some nutrients that are lost during heavy sweating, but water should make up the majority of your fluid intake. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Otro reporting.
Prolonged exposure to the sun is also related to many health problems. Skin-related cancers are the most common in the U.S., with 1 in 5 Americans expected to be diagnosed with some form. Well, total rainfall in Louisiana since January is below normal for most of the state, with some areas as much as 10 to 15 inches below normal. This week, TWILA's Carl Wiggers takes us to Calcasieu Parish, where the lack of rain has farmers making tough choices about the water they put on their crops.
Hot, dry days here in Calcasieu Parish are making things tough for farmers like Brandon Vale and their livestock and a young rice crop.
If we can get a disaster over here, we're going to get it. This is something that kind of started shaping up about last November. And we thought it was just going to be kind of nice. We'd have a dry winter for a change, easy on the cows, easy to put hay out. Ryegrass would grow good. Had some oats I grew for seed. They grew out really nice. About March, we realized it's really getting kind of dry for this time of year.
According to WAFB Chief Meteorologist Jay Grimes, the entire state has experienced some level of drought this year.
Drier than normal means that our threat for flooding goes down. Unfortunately, it was unusually dry, even by winter standards, during much of the winter and into the early part of the spring. So most of the state started rolling into the spring drier than normal, hence pasture problems and moisture deficits.
According to Grimes, southwest Louisiana is so far behind the normal rainfall, as much as 15 inches in places. That means Vale and others in the region are going to be pulling more water from bayous than normal. Due to the drought, that water is saltier than usual.
Being this close to the Gulf, you're going to deal with that. We're some of the first ones to catch it just because of our proximity to Calcasieu locks. So salt's an issue we know how to deal with. Being that it's so dry, you have no other rainfall recharge coming into your canals, your bayous, or anything. So your salt is starting to reach further and further up than it normally would.
Grimes says conditions suggest we should start to see some of those recharged rains very soon.
So we're hopeful that we'll start to see those summertime afternoon thunder showers kick in the coming weeks. Right now, there's no reason to expect that they won't. But until they do, some of our Acadiana and southwestern ag folks are going to be dealing with unanticipated moisture stress.
That stress is hitting Vale's crops, but also him. Moving really salty water onto fields of young rice is a tough choice to make. But Vale says he really doesn't have another option.
I've got some stuff at grain ring. It's actually got 140. But the thing is, at this point, I have no choice. I have to put water or I lose the crop just strictly to drought stress. It's kind of one of those deals, hey, if we don't put the salt water, you're not going to have the yield anyway. So.
In Calcasieu Parish, I'm Carl Wiggers for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
Now, as you heard in Carl's story, Grimes says it looks like we could see rainfall trending closer to normal in the coming weeks. That's especially good news for our friends farming along the Gulf Coast. Until then, Vale and others in that area continue to pump brackish waters onto their rice fields. Well, we're only weeks away from the official beginning of hurricane season, so farmers praying for rain in May could be saying different prayers in August. Colorado State University is predicting another above-average hurricane season in the Atlantic with 19 named storms. That does not bode well for Louisiana, according to LSU Ag Center climatologist and WAFB Chief Meteorologist Jay Grimes. He says many weather conditions that existed over the last 2 years will be in place during the 2023 hurricane season.
the Gulf is already warm enough, and it's going to stay that way through the season. So we've got that factor there. Number two, with La Nina in place and expected to continue, it looks like we're not going to have very much wind shear at the mid and upper levels. So once storms start to organize, they'll have an environment that's good for them to continue to grow. Number three is that it looks like we could have periods of high pressure over the central Atlantic, large domes of high pressure, and the storms have to skirt around those to the south of them, which means they turn north later, which brings more of them into the Caribbean and potentially the Gulf. And then number four, if we're talking about another very busy season, the elevated number of storms alone just means the potential for some of those to get into the Gulf goes up as well. And keep in mind, when we start talking about these storm numbers, historically 1 in 3 tropical systems in the Atlantic either form in the Gulf or end up in the Gulf. And for Louisiana, as soon as it's in the Gulf, we have to be ready and prepared.
As always, we will keep you up to date here on Twila as storms come our way. Oftentimes, though, our Facebook is a better place to get the latest on storms headed this way and what that means for farmers, ranchers, and rural residents. We'll link you to that on our website at twilatv.org. Well, after the break, Twila's Avery Davidson joins us to talk more about the upcoming storm season in Louisiana and see what you should be doing to get ready. Stay with us.
Thank you for staying with us here on Twila. We are at the Louisiana Emergency Management Conference, which is very important as we're only 2 weeks away from the beginning of hurricane season. Joining me now is Casey Tingle. He is the director of the Governor's Office of Emergency Preparedness and Homeland Security. I think I flipped that around. GOSEP is the official title there. But Casey, we are 2 weeks away from hurricane season. What do our farmers, our ranchers, and our rural residents need to keep in mind to get a game plan?
Yeah, I think it's very important, as we have some time here at the beginning of hurricane season to make those preparations and to get ready. As we've seen the last 2 years, some of those strong winds can go well inland, so this isn't just a coastal problem. And so having a plan to take care of the animals and wildlife, knowing if you have to evacuate, how you're going to take care of your animals along the way, and then the opportunities for farmers and others to partner with one another to take care of, with food and hay and things like that. We've seen a number of great examples over the years of how that community is really bonded together and helped one another.
Yeah, the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation has its disaster response committee and also has a way of farmers being able to help farmers and connect to one another. What are some of the challenges that you guys face when it comes to dealing with rural areas? And, because when disaster strikes, it doesn't really care whether you're urban or rural. It's going to strike where it's going to strike.
Yeah, I think it's important to have a good communication plan, have a way to stay weather aware and apprised of all of the latest from a weather perspective. Certainly we've seen broadband issues across large swaths of rural Louisiana, and so having multiple ways to communicate and staying in touch with loved ones who may be living in isolated areas and that sort of thing, staying in touch with loved ones is always an important part of the planning.
And we kind of stay in touch with our Farm Bureau family, but we're in touch right now with all of the emergency management family. This is the Louisiana Emergency Management Conference. What are you hearing from your counterparts across the state, and what are your concerns going into this hurricane season?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, everyone is so glad to be back together in a conference like this. It's been 2 years since we were able to do this, and over those past 2 years, a lot has happened to our state, from Hurricane Laura through Hurricane Ida, all in the midst of COVID. So being back together and being able to share experiences, and the community really helps each other as some parishes will deploy to other parishes to help them out. So that sense of camaraderie and teamwork is so important in all of this, because no one can do it by themselves. On the what are we thinking about perspective, certainly the projections are that this is likely to be an above active season, just as we've seen in previous years. But at the end of the day, it only takes one storm. And so that combined with the sense that our communities are more fragile,
because of what's happened the last 2 years. So all of that really requires an extra level of planning and preparedness and making sure that everyone is aware of their own risk and has a plan to take care of themselves for 72 hours to allow the governmental systems to kind of come back into place. And certainly if local officials were to call for an evacuation or something like that, we're encouraging everyone to listen to those officials.
Now that teamwork is really important, especially for the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. I've been in what we call the war room, where all the agencies are sitting there together. But how important is it to have that during a time of disaster?
Well, it's critical. It takes teamwork. It takes, rallying around that mission. And all of, on a state level, all of our different agencies, whether it's state police or DOTD, Department of Ag and Forestry, LDH, DCFS, they've all got such important roles to play. Our National Guard fills so many different gaps for us as a state. And it really takes that team approach. And GOSEP's job is really just to coordinate and keep all of the pieces moving and in touch with one another. And that helps to support our parishes and helps us to draw down federal resources when we need them as well.
Well, Casey, we appreciate you spending long nights there in the GOSEP office there in Baton Rouge. Casey Tingle, he is the director of the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. When we come back here on Twila, a Twila Boost to brighten your day. Stay with us.
In this week's Twila Boost, we bring you a simple video that will certainly make your heart smile today. This is 2-year-old Bridget and her best friend Herbie the calf. These two have an inseparable bond, and her dad Gabriel loves to share their videos on social media.
You coming?
Well, before we leave you this week, I have one more boost, or bump, I guess I would say, that I can't keep a secret any longer, apparently, because everybody knows what it is. So we will be adding another member to the Twila team.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Like,
look at that. Look at how cute that
this
is.
is the only thing that I've prepared for so far. So my husband Landon and I will be expecting our first child in August, and Bree, apparently I'm just learning, is the child expert when it comes to knowing, because I don't know anything. I don't have anything prepared, but you apparently are an expert.
4 years of it, so we're good.
So you worked at a nursery?
I worked at a daycare, but I mainly worked in the nursery. So, and I also worked with kids throughout, so we'll work our way
We're
up.
going to have to have Bree on speed dial. And Neil, because I know how Neil loves children so much, you're my first call for a babysitter, so I'm going to put the two of you in a car.
Okay.
And maybe we can raise a successful little Twilight.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
Thank you. But that does it for this edition of Twila. Be sure to join us next time when we'll show you how Louisiana's only collegiate rodeo team is preparing to compete on the national level. Until then, you can watch all of our stories online at twilatv.org, and be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You can also find all of these stories and more on our YouTube channel, so be sure to subscribe to us and turn on the notifications so you know when we put out new content. For all of us here at Twila, thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again right here next week.